Warrior Cats, Dawn of the Clans, Thunder Rising by Erin Hunter, Chapter 1. The new growth of moorland grass rippled under a warm breeze that ruffled Greywing's fur, telling him that the cold season was coming to an end. Green shoots were springing from the ground in all directions, and bright yellow flowers had appeared on the gorse bushes that dotted the landscape. The distant sound of birdsong promised abundant prey in the moons to come. A few tailings away, Thunder was letting out excited squeals as he wrestled happily with Hawkswoop's kits, Lightning Tail and Acorn Fur. Greywing blinked affectionately as he watched them rolling around on the soft grass, batting at each other with flailing paws, their claws sheathed. He had asked Hawkswoop for permission to take them out for a hunting lesson. Okay, the tabby she-cat had agreed, but mind you, don't let them go too far from the camp. Now Greywing was content to let the kids play for a few moments, enjoying their carefree antics. Farther across the moor, he could see Cloudspots and Dappled Pelt returning from the direction of the river, bunches of fresh herbs clamped in their jaws. Raindrop Flower emerged from a clump of gorse carrying the limp body of a rabbit. She dragged the prey into the hollow where jackdaws cried and shattered ice were digging out more earth to open up a new sleeping tunnel. Hawkswoop and Tall Shadow sat close together, grooming themselves while they talked. This feels like home now, Greywing thought, remembering their long journey from the mountains and their struggles to establish themselves on the moor. It had been hard to accept Stoneteller's vision of a better home to be found if they followed the sun trail. The journey had been full of danger, and yet they had made it through. Life's good here. Lightning Tail, you be a hare. Thunder's voice brought Greywing's attention back to the kits. I'll show you how to catch one. Okay. Lightning Tail began hopping from side to side, imitating the irregular movement of a hare. Thunder glanced at Acorn Fur and meowed, "Watch this." Flying himself to the ground, he crept forward. Lightning Tail, who kept glancing over his shoulder to see whether the older kit was catching up to him. Thunder wagged his haunches and shot forward in an enormous leap. When he landed on top of Lightning Tail, the black kit let out a squeal and rolled over on his back, wrapping his paws around Thunder's neck, so that the two toms collapsed to the ground in a bundle of wriggling fur. Clear Sky and I were just like that once, Greywing thought with a prickle of sadness. How did we ever come to quarrel so badly? You're dead, Thunder yelled. I killed you. I want to do it for real, Acorn Fur announced, bouncing up to them. I'm going to be the best hunter ever. That's good, Greywing meowed, patting up to the kits, but you've got a lot to learn before then. I can creep like thunder, Lightning Tail pressed himself down and squirmed along with his paws scrabbling in the grass. See? Great, Greywing responded, ignoring the kitten's tail, which was waving around in the air. But there's more to that than catching prey. Out here on the moor, prey can see you from a long way off. So what do you have to do? Leap on them. Like this. Acorn Fur screeched, jumping on top of her brother and knocking him off his paws. Thunder dived in to join them. They would never catch anything if they couldn't pay attention, but Greywing held back from reprimanding them. It felt good to watch the happy, healthy kits. They're so big and strong, twice the size of poor fluttering bird. A twinge of grief passed through him as he remembered his sister, who had died in the mountains because there hadn't been enough food for her during the cold season. He felt a rush of protective love for Thunder and the others. He was determined that they would grow into strong, healthy cats. The cold season wasn't so hard. There was always enough prey. Greywing still found it difficult to accept that the snow here wasn't as thick as the snowfall in the mountains. It didn't stay around for so long. The frost burned off much earlier in the mornings. There had been few days when they couldn't hunt or find water to drink, especially in the forest, where the trees provided shelter from the worst of the cold weather. He suppressed a sigh. There were still times when he missed his home and his mother, Quiet Rain, but the easier life on the moor meant the kits had survived and would soon see the warm season return. Thunder and Lightning Tail kept wrestling, yowling loud enough to scare off all the prey on the moor. Acorn Fur broke away from them with a sudden shriek. Watch me! She raced into the hollow and vanished down the tunnel opening where Greywing had seen Jackdaw's cry and Shattered Ice working earlier. He headed after her, his heart beginning to pound. There was a whole network of tunnels underneath the moor, mostly burrows dug by rabbits. The cats had begun to enlarge them to make dens, but some places weren't yet safe, and being in the burrows never felt natural to Greywing. It was dark and confining. He found it hard to breathe. Besides, if she goes too deep into the tunnels, we might not be able to get her out. To Greywing's relief, Acorn Fur appeared almost at once, thrust into the open again by another cat close behind her. As the cat emerged, Greywing saw it was her father, Jackdaw's cry. Shattered Ice stuck his head out behind the other two, an annoyed look on his face. "Stay away from here," Jackdaw's cry scolded Acorn Fur. "This tunnel isn't safe yet. Shattered Ice and I are still digging it out." He gave his daughter a sharp tap on the nose, his claws sheathed. "Aren't you supposed to be having a hunting lesson with Greywing?" "She is," Greywing called down to him. "Thanks, Jackdaw's cry." The Black Tom gave Greywing a nod of acknowledgement before vanishing into the tunnel again with Shattered Ice. Acorn Fern turned away, her tail drooping, and trudged back up the slope to the top of the hollow. "Wow!" Lightning Tail exclaimed as she joined the others. "That was awesome. Now we know how to get our nose whacked." Acorn Fur glared at him, but didn't reply. "I think you should show us again," her brother teased her. "I'm not sure I could get it right." "Really? Then this is how you get your nose whacked, flea brain?" Acorn Fur hissed, swiping her paw across her brother's nose. Lightning Tail leaped back. "Hey, that hurt." "That's enough," Greywing meowed, getting between the littermates before a fight could develop. "We're supposed to be hunting, remember?" To his relief, the kids began to settle down, scuffling about until they found comfortable spots to sit. They looked up at him with wide eyes. Greywing glanced around for something to help the young kids learn. He noticed movement underneath a gorse bush. A rabbit moved a little way into the open, nibbling at the grass. "Look over there," he told the kids, pointing it with his tail. "But don't move. See the rabbit? I'm going to catch it." The kids nodded with sparkling eyes and impatiently twitching tail tips. "First," Greywing went on, "I'm going to let it come away from the bush a bit. It's likely that the entrance to its burrow is hidden there somewhere, and when I'm chasing it, I'm going to keep a careful eye on it so I can guess which way it's going to run." While he had been speaking, the rabbit had moved even further into the open. Greywing watched carefully, waiting for just the right moment. Then, in a spurt of energy, he took off after it, reveling in the sensation of his muscles stretching and the breeze streaming through his pelt. He was within a few tail lengths of it before the rabbit realized he was there. It fled with a squeal of alarm, its white tail bobbing up and down. Greywing kept his gaze fixed on it, racing across to intercept the creature as it tried to double back toward the safety of the bush. The rabbit's paws skidded as it veered away again, but within a few strides, Greywing had caught it, slamming his paws on its shoulders to thrust it into the ground, where he killed it with a bite to the throat. Satisfaction flooded through him. Picking up the still warm body of his prey, Greywing trotted back to the kits, who were watching admiringly. Great catch, Greywing," Thunder exclaimed. "I want to do that," Acorn Fur meowed. "You will, soon," Greywing promised, pushing the rabbit underneath the branches of a nearby gorse bush. "I'll come back to retrieve it when we've finished. In fact, you may have a try now. Who can find some prey?" The kids sprang to their paws, gazing around and sniffing vigorously at the air. "All I can smell is that rabbit," Lightning Tail complained. "Then let's move." Greywing meowed, leading him a few tail lengths away from the hollow. "Thunder, can you see anything?" Greywing had already spotted a mouse nibbling on some seeds in a clump of longer grass. As it slipped between the grass stems, the tops began to wave about, and Thunder spotted the movement. "There," he whispered, angling his ears toward the mouse. "Okay, go for it," Greywing told him. Immediately, Thunder pressed himself to the ground and began to creep forward. Greywing shook his head, still keeping his voice low so as not to alarm the mouse. "No, I already told you, the way of hunting might work in the forest. That way of hunting might work in the forest, where there are plenty of places to hide, and sounds in the trees that would cover your approach. But it's no good out here, because your prey can see you from a distance. You've got to rely on speed." "Oh, okay." Thunder rose to his paws again, the tip of his tail twitching in frustration, then hurled himself across the moor toward the grassy tussocks where the mouse was hiding. Faster, Acorn Fur shrieked. Stupid furball! Lightning Tail slapped his tail across his sister's mouth. Now look what you've done! The mouse froze, as if it had heard Acorn Fur and realized there was danger near. Then it shot out of the long grass, scurrying toward an outcrop of rock a few tail lengths away. Thunder tried to put an extra burst of speed, but somehow he managed to get tangled up in his own paws and lost his balance, landing on the ground with a thump. The mouse dived into a gap between two rocks and vanished. Thunder scrambled upright, gave his paw a shake, and plodded back to the others with his head low. Sorry, he mumbled. It's okay, Greywing responded, resting the tip of his tail on Thunder's shoulder. You'll do better next time. Glancing at Thunder's huge white paws, he could understand why the kid was so clumsy. He was obviously going to grow into a big, powerful cat, but he was at the gangly, awkward stage now, not in full control of his movements. His time will come, Greywing thought. He just needs to be patient. I want to try now, Acorn Fur meowed, if you haven't scared all the prey away. What? Thunder's eyes widened indignantly. If you hadn't... Greywing raised a paw to stop the bickering. We'll look for more fur, he began. There's bound to be something. There, Lightning Tail pointed with his tail. Greywing turned to see a small flock of birds pecking at the grass near the rocky outcrop where the mouse had vanished. He nodded. Go for it. Lightning Tail had once dropped into a crouch like thunder, as if Greywing instructions had passed right over his head. Run, flea brain! Acorn Fur squealed at her brother. She took off, racing across the grass with her tail streaming out behind her. Watching, Greywing admired her speed, but she was letting out excited little squeaks as she ran. A few birds had already flown off at the sound of her first squeal. The rest of the flock rose into the air long before she got anywhere near them. Lightning Tail, who had followed her as soon as he realized his mistake in trying to stalk, halted and turned back with a disgusted expression. Now who's a flea brain? He asked. Greywing shook his head, trying to hide his amusement. You still have a lot to learn, he murmured. He was waiting for the two kids to come back when he was distracted by Thunder thrusting himself into a tremendous leap. Greywing saw that one of the birds had alighted a short distance away. Thunder's front paws reached out and batted the bird to the ground as it fluttered up in a vain attempt to escape. The young cat straightened up with the limp body of the bird in his jaws. His eyes were shining. I got one, he announced, his voice muffled by his mouth full of feathers. For a moment, Greywing couldn't give him the praise he deserved. That massive leap had reminded him too much of Clear Sky, Thunder's father, like when he killed that hawk not long before we left the mountains. The pain of remembering the days when he and his brother were so close washed over Greywing again. He hadn't ventured into the forest or tried to see his brother since Clear Sky had refused to acknowledge Thunder as his son, and that had been before the cold season started. At their last meeting, Greywing had even declared that Clear Sky was no longer his brother. The loss of his closest family member felt like a thorn in Greywing's heart, but he couldn't forgive him for that harsh rejection of Thunder. Greywing sighed. I've been trying to raise Thunder to show kindness and compassion, but is Clear Sky's character going to come out in him no matter what I do? A soft murmur of greeting sounded behind Greywing, distracting him from his dark thoughts. He turned to see a tortoiseshell she-cat bounding toward him. His eyes widened and delight flashed through him like a ray of sunshine at the sight of her. Turtletail. She'd come with them down from the mountains and been a faithful friend until... But no, I won't dwell on that now. Turtletail, he exclaimed, how did you find us? She left the mountain cats before they moved into their new camp. I went to the hollow where we used to live, Turtletail explained, and it was empty. Just a trace of stale cat scent. She shivered. I thought at first foxes must have killed all of you, but I couldn't let myself believe that, so I went on looking until I picked up a trail, and here I am. So good to see you, Greywing told her. Turtletail padded up to Greywing and touched noses with him. It's good to see you too, she purred. It's been a long time. Glancing around at the kit, she added, It looks as if you've got your paws full. Greywing nodded. He hadn't seen Turtletail since she helped him to rescue Thunder from the collapsing two-leg den. Since then, she has spent all the cold season cozily in the two-leg place, living the life of a kitty pet. I still can't believe she chose to do that, Greywing thought, shifting his glance so that she couldn't see his expression. To choose a life where you didn't have to hunt prey and you wouldn't feel a dawn breeze ruffle your fur. It made no sense to Greywing. When she left, Greywing hadn't been able to hide his sense of betrayal, and Turtletail had become cold and aloof. But it was clear that Turtletail's new life suited her. She was plump and healthy looking, with a glossy pelt and bright eyes that glowed as she gazed at Greywing. "And this huge cat is Thunder?" she asked, turning to the kit, who stood close by with his prey in his jaws, looking bewildered and a bit hurt. Greywing realized with a twinge of guilt that he still hadn't praised him for his catch. "He's grown. I remember how tiny he was when we brought him into the forest and named him." When Thunder's mother, Storm, had died in the debris of the two-legged den, Greywing and Turtletail had been able to save Thunder, but his littermates and mother had been lost forever. Her fur was so soft, her eyes so beautiful. Greywing's tail drooped, and pain stabbed through his heart. "I'll never see her again." "Look, Thunder has caught a bird. He's going to be a great hunter." Turtletail's voice jolted him from his thoughts. When Greywing glanced at her, he saw instantly that she was being deliberately cheerful. "It's almost as though she could see what I was thinking. I suppose Turtletail knows me so well she even knows how to distract me if I'm sad." "So he is," Greywing agreed, shaking himself. Thunder burned at the praise, and the other two kids came crowding up. "Are going to be brilliant hunters, too," Acorn Fur announced. "I'm sure you are," Turtletail responded, blinking. She turned to Greywing. "These must be Hawk Swoop's kits. They're big and strong, too. Look at them." "Maybe you've been away longer than you realized," Greywing meowed. But the hurt in Turtletail's eyes made him immediately regret his words. "I mean, long enough for, well," he stammered. "I missed you, Turtletail." The she-cat's eyes shone. "I missed you too, Greywing." He turned to the kids, suddenly aware that they were watching the two adult cats and drinking in every detail of the conversation. "This is Lightning Tail, and this is Acorn Fur." "Good names," Turtletail mewed, happiness returning to her face. "I'm Turtletail. Lightning Tail got his name because he's always hanging around with Thunder," Greywing explained. There's our own little storm in the making." Turtletail's eyes gleamed with amusement, and she touched noses with each of the kids. "Go and play," Greywing gently told them. He wanted to talk to Turtletail without the three of them listening in on every word. They didn't need to be told twice. With yells of pleasure, the kids went racing off, chasing one another around the gorse bush. "How are you getting on in the two-leg place?" Greywing asked, feeling suddenly awkward. He didn't want Turtletail to think he was criticizing her again. "Did you make it through the cold season okay?" "Yes, it was nice," Turtletail replied lightly. "Very cozy and comfortable. Bumble and I had extra company, too. Not long after I went to live there, another cat came to join us." "A rogue?" Greywing asked, finding that hard to believe. "Oh no," Turtletail replied. The two legs went away, and when they came back, they were carrying a cat, a big Tom. He told us he had lived with another two-leg, but one day his two legs suddenly stopped coming to feed him." "You can't trust two legs," Greywing thought, but he had the sense not to say it out loud. "So when the Tom went to live in a place with a bunch of other cats, they were all really unhappy and whiny there, and he said that they could hear dogs barking close by. They were all cooped up together. Then the cat, they called him Tom, by the way." "Tom," Greywing interrupted. "They called the Tom Tom? I'll never understand two legs." Turtletail shrugged. "Anyway, he was taken away from there by our two legs, and came to live with me and Bumble." "Did you like him?" Greywing asked. "Was he friendly?" Turtletail hesitated, looking down at her paws. "Oh yes, he was friendly," she replied at last. "We got on fine." She gave her paw a shake. "It was time to leave, though. I missed my friends on the moors." "Turtletail's returning to us?" Pleasure raced through Greywing's body, but before he had a chance to say anything, the three kids came charging back, chasing one another in circles, and skidded in a patch of loose soil, unable to stop in time. Lightning Tail barreled into Turtletail, who lost her balance and fell onto her back, her legs and tail waving as she let out a yell of pain and discomfort. Greywing's eyes widened with shock as he looked at her. Seeing her swollen belly for the first time, she's expecting kits. "Are you hurt?" he asked anxiously as he went up to help her up. Turtletail leaned on his shoulders, panting as she regained her paws. For a moment she was silent. Finally, she let out a short puff of breath. "I'm fine, I think." Greywing's gaze swiveled back to the three kids. Lightning Tail was cowering behind Thunder, his expression horrified. Greywing beckoned him forward with a flick of his tail. Come and apologize to Turtletail, he ordered sternly. Lightning Tail cringed, and he approached, his head down and his tail trailing behind him. I'm really sorry, he mewed. It's okay. Turtletail gave his ears a swift flick. Just remember not to go dashing around without looking where you're going, Greywing told him. He paused briefly, then added, Now I thought I told you to go play. He waited until all three kits had bundled off, squeaking excitedly. Turtletail was having kits. Who would have expected that? So, he meowed to her, angling his ears to her swollen belly. How did that happen? How do you think it happened? Turtletail hissed, then her eyes softened. I made a mistake, she went on. I missed you all so much. Tom seemed strong and friendly. I thought I could move on and make a new life with him. But when I realized I was expecting kits, he changed. Greywing felt a growl rising up in his throat. If he hurt you... Oh no, Turtletail assured him. Tom was still friendly, but he didn't want to make any plans for the kits with me, and Bubbles seemed uncomfortable any time I mentioned them. Turtletail flicked her tail tip, but neither of them would admit that anything was wrong. So what did you do? Greywing asked. I begged Bumble to be honest with me. She didn't want to, but at last she told me that the two legs would take my kits away and give them to other two legs. Her voice shook a little. I would never see them again once they didn't need milk from me anymore. That's dreadful, Greywing exclaimed, pressing his nose into Turtletail's shoulder. How could a family be torn apart like that? In the mountains and now here on the moors, the cats pulled together. Everyone helped look after the kittens. It was unthinkable that any cat would give up on their young. Well, until Clear Sky rejected Thunder, Greywing reminded himself. Bumble said Tom had asked her not to tell me the truth, and now, well, I'll never trust kitty pets or two legs again. I've learned who my real friends are, and all I want is to come back to you all. She fixed her gaze on Greywing, her eyes wide. Do you think the rest of them will have me? He felt his heart melt under her earnest gaze. How could they not? He mewed, glancing again at Turtletail's rounded belly. For some reason, thinking of Turtletail carrying another cat's kids made him feel uncomfortable. This is where you belong. Gesturing with his tail, Greywing led Turtletail to the top of the hollow. Wow, she exclaimed, her eyes stretching wide with admiration as she looked over their home. What an awesome place, much better than the old camp. Greywing nodded. We're safer and more sheltered here, he said, indicating the gorse bushes with his tail. As they headed down the slope, Shattered Eyes popped out of the tunnel he was digging with Jackdaw's cry. Earth scattered over his white pelt. When he spotted Turtletail, he halted, his eyes narrowing. What are you doing here? He asked. Hi, Shattered Eyes. Turtletail greeted him. It's good to see you again. At first, Shattered Eyes didn't respond. Instead, he glanced at Turtletail coldly, then meowed. You turned your back on us when the weather got cold. What makes a kitty pet like you think that you'll be welcomed here now? Turtletail fluffed out her fur indignantly, almost hiding her pregnant belly. You don't have the right to tell any cat that they can't come onto the moor, she retorted. Who do you think you are, Clear Sky? Look, Greywing began, wincing at the mention of his brother. Both cats ignored his attempt to intervene. Clear Sky has some good ideas, Shattered Eyes muttered. I'm taking you straight down to Tall Shadow, he went on. She'll decide what to do with you. Turtletail doesn't have to, Greywing began again. Don't bother trying to defend me, Turtletail interrupted, her ears flattening angrily. I'd love to see Tall Shadow again. I've missed her, and I don't think she'll need any help putting Shattered Eyes in his place. Shattered Eyes and Turtletail set off, joined by Jackdaw's cry, who had emerged from the tunnel with a startled look at Turtletail. Greywing turned to find the kits and spotted them scrambling up onto a lichen-covered boulder, then hurling themselves off with squeaks of excitement. Come on, he called. It's time to go home.